Hello all, this is Matt, bringing you some of my favourite features from the world of Microsoft Power Platform. So today we're going to have a look at passing parameters from Power Apps into Power Automate with this simple example. So I've got a simple SharePoint list, completely out of the box with just a single title field. We've got a simple Power App here, just with a single text box and a create button, neither of which are doing anything at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Power Automate to write from the Power App into the SharePoint list. Obviously, lots of ways we could go about doing that. We could use forms. We don't need to even use Power Automate, but hopefully this will illustrate the point that I want to make with this video. So we're going to come to create. We're going to create an instant flow if we want it to happen when the button is clicked within the app. We'll call it add list item. What it's going to do. So we can see we've got multiple options on how to trigger this flow. Obviously for this example here, I'm going to be using Power Apps as my mechanism for triggering that process and passing in some parameters when I do. So I'll click on create. You can see what it does. It creates a stub at the beginning for the trigger, which will be in Power Apps at this point. You can see it's not configurable. There's nothing. I don't need to tell it which app I'm going to be using to do it. It'll be available to any apps. So from that perspective, it's very flexible. So all I want to do with it really is to create a SharePoint list item in my simple list. So we'll click on create item, create SharePoint item. So it's going to ask me where I want to create this list item, and I'll look at it into my Power Apps site where that list is located. Power Apps 2, there we go. And it's this simple list, it's the one that I'm using. Okay, so you can see it read the metadata of the list straight away, and it came back and realized that the only thing that's actually required to create an item in that list is the title. Now, I don't want to define a specific title for this. I want it to be driven. I want it to be something that I pass in from my app. So this is where it gets quite clever. You might also notice I'm using the newer interface as well, where the dynamic and function buttons are up here rather than popping out to the right. So I'm going to click on add a dynamic value. And you can see here that it has this option of ask in Power Apps, which is a bit of a different way of doing parameters from what you may be used to. So rather than me defining the parameter in the app and it reading it here in Power Apps, I actually say when I'm building the process to create my item, then I want to ask for the title in the app, whatever app it is that this is working with. So it could be used across multiple apps. It's like a function or a method. So I'm going to say ask in Power Apps. You can see it creates me a parameter. It creates me a create item underscore title. So that's all I need to do. It's going to ask at runtime for that title value. Everything's good. Let's click save. I come back to my app. So this is called add list item. So I come back to my app. I come up to my action tab at the top, click on Power Automate, and you can see here that it's reading the Power Automates that all start with that generic step. So obviously I've got the one I just created, which is my add list item. So that's the one I want to use. So any that I have created that start with that generic Power App step will show up here that I can use because they're geared to take parameters from the Power App. So let's click on that. You can see that it's bolting it in, and you can see what it's done, helpfully or not, is give me the stub of the command that I need to run in order to interact with that Power Automate step. I don't really want it to be on visible property of my form, so I'm just going to take that. I'm going to cut it with Control X because I want to use it elsewhere. So the place I want it to be, of course, is within my Create button. So let's go ahead and click on that Create button there, and I want to look at the action for that, which will be the select action for this, which is the on select. So currently it's set to false, just generic value. When I click on that button, I want to run my add list item Power Automate flow. and you can see that already it recognizes that it needs a parameter inside the parenthesis in order to operate. So it's looking for the create item title. I could hard code it, but the most sensible thing I can do in here is actually use the value from the text box that I've got on the page. So I'll start typing txt value is the text box that I've got, and I want the text property of that box. Close off my parenthesis. So we can see now that we've got our add list item Power Automate flow. We're running it and we're passing in whatever's in this box. Okay, so that's straightforward enough at the moment. Let's run the app. Let's call this mat test item, and let's go ahead and hit create. So you can see it's done some things at the top. We haven't really managed the what it does next within the app, so it's just a simple test. But let's go back to the flow and look at the runs, and you can see that it has run a few seconds ago very quickly, and it succeeded. Okay, great. Let's go and have a look at that run, and it was triggered from Power Apps, so we can expand this out and we can actually have a look at the properties that were passed into it during that runtime. And there's the create item title property, which is one I wanted, which it passed through successfully. So again, we can look into the create item step, and we can see that it was added to the simple list, and it gave us a pass back of the list item ID, which was generated at the time, plus some information about the person who did it, which was me. So I've come back to my simple list, and you can see there we go. We've created a new item, the mat test item, as part of doing that. So just a very short technical video to see how you can use Power Automate as a generic function engine essentially, and then refer to those Power Automate flows programmatically. So in this example, of course, I was using a button click, but of course that could be done on a timer. It could be done on screens loading. It could be done as on any sort of basis. Essentially, we could programmatically trigger that flow and pass in whatever value we needed to pass in whenever we needed to do that. So hopefully you found that interesting. If you did, let me know, and I'll start to record more of these little technical pieces of information for you. Bye for now.